Well, okay, we'll get started. I'm Bob Perkins with Crystal Knows, and welcome to this webinar. It's going to be very informal. We encourage you to ask a question, chat in comments. Um, if you'd like us to cover something that we didn't cover, let us know. So we really appreciate engagement, a lot of back and forth. With us today, Sandra Hayland, Chief Executive Officer with SalesScreen. Sandra, welcome, and maybe just give a very brief background of yourself.
Thanks, Bob. Great to be here. Yeah, I'm Sindra. I'm actually an engineer by education, and I founded SalesScreen back in 2011. So I had the pleasure of being the CEO here for more than a decade now, and that's given me quite a lot of experience working with sales team, as we are the #1 sales gamification platform in the world. So looking forward to this talk.
Great to have you. By way of my background, some of you on the Zoom call here might know me from AAISP. I was the founder of the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. Sold, not quite 2 years ago, and then retired for a bit. And then I found Crystal, and I just love what they do. And I said, "Hey, can I come in and help?" So I'm here with Crystal. So let's go ahead to the next slide. And today we're going to cover a few areas. We're really talking about motivation and trying to drive behavior and drive results. But underneath that, we're going to look at personality, insights. If you know personalities and how to maybe communicate and motivate different personality types, can that help with motivation and results? Then gamification, that's Cindra's expertise there. He's going to spend some time looking at that. And then, of course, let's give you some practical tips and best practices on how to incorporate gamification. Gamification's been around for quite a while, and it's nice to see us talking about it again. I don't think there's been a more important time when the economy's tough. We're just getting through COVID to look at this thing called motivation. And I've always believed it's a leader's responsibility to make sure that they're doing their best to motivate. So let's go to the next slide. And Sindra, I think we have a poll or a couple polls.
Do you actually? So we'd like to start it off and, as Bob said, be a bit more casual and engaging. So let's start the first poll. How familiar are you with using your team members' personality data to motivate them and the individual? So Emily, could you launch the poll, please? There we go.
We'll just give this just a minute here. And I have a great story to share how I did not do this, but I'll hold that till later. All right. How familiar are you with using team members' personality, to help craft how you motivate? All right. Let's hopefully you've all had a chance to answer that. Emily, if you think we have a majority there, let's go ahead and take a look at the results. Okay.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I would say the majority either moderately to very. So it looks like you have some experience. So we'll be wanting you to weigh in. We don't have all the answers, so we'd like to hear from you as well. What's the next one?
So the second one is just around gamification. So how familiar are you with the concept of using gamification as a motivational tool for your team? Obviously, knowing this is going to help shape the conversation a bit if everyone is using it all the time versus not familiar at all. We'll go a bit more in depth in the background.
Yeah, this will help us to get a sense on if maybe, and if you're, what else, as you're taking this poll, go to chat. If you are using gamification, tell us what you're using via chat. The type or how you do it, a little brief description there if you are employing a more formal gamification process.
So
Right.
definitionally speaking, gamification is let's say the art or usage of game-like elements, anything from leaderboard or points or contests or anything like that. That's typical for games and applied in a non-game like environment. So in our case, sales. So I'm sure that most people should at some level use gamification today.
Let's see what the results are here.
All right.
Oh, okay.
That's
A little,
interesting.
that's interesting. You mentioned the game, the fun of the game. I remember many, many years ago, I don't know, we had like 20 gift cards and we put them up on a board, and the first people that could land a meeting would get it. Well, we go ready, set, go. People were running to the board to be the first one to get a gift card after they booked the
Exactly.
meeting. Yeah.
It's not something new, but I guess it's, as you said, Bob, it's more important than ever with everything going on in the world. So just by background, like, why is motivation so important? Obviously, if you have a very highly engaged and motivated team, you're going to see improved productivity and sales performance, which is the ultimate goal of any sales team, I would say, is to hit your target and surpass it. So goal attainment and motivation are very closely linked. We also talk about employee turnover, and that's it's been tough for many years, and specifically in some industries. And gamification has been proven to help increase employee engagement and thus keep people around. They have more fun, which kind of makes sense. So really, just creating that culture of appreciation and having a supportive environment where people feel recognized and cherished, it's definitely very key to motivation and having a motivated team. So I think that, I don't know, Bob, would you say your teams historically have been very motivated?
One of the things that I try to do as a leader over the years is provide fun and provide some, contests and ways for the team to, feel pride about what they do, pride about winning. But I'll talk more about that, I think, in the next slide. So I'm going to start out with a story, and the story didn't go so well. So when we did the poll on all of you just a few minutes ago around, are you familiar with using personality insights? Many of you said yes, moderately to, quite a bit. So that's great. Early in my career, I was not. I always prided myself on having campaigns and spiffs and programs. And one year we had some funding from a business unit selling big, expensive storage systems, and he came to inside sales and said, "Hey, I have a $30,000 budget for this big campaign." So I went and took it upon myself to create a couple of prizes. And one day, I think it was a Thursday, I said, "Hey, everybody, come to the back of the building real quick." So everybody came together, and I was rolling out this campaign. I said, "We're having a campaign. Look what you can win." And in the parking lot pulled in a trailer with jet skis and another trailer with snowmobiles. Well, this is up in Minnesota, where a lot of people jet ski in the summer, a lot of lakes, and a lot of people snowmobile in the winter. And people are like, "Wow, this is great." So the next day, I have a couple of sales reps approach me and said, "We're not really into snowmobiling or jet skiing, and what we'd like is, maybe a weekend away or a spa weekend away or something like that, or nice fancy jewelry." So I just, couldn't believe the mistake I made. And I think the point here is, and since that time, thankfully, that was earlier in my career. So, how can you use personality data insights to motivate your employees? How many are familiar with DISC? Let's go ahead and type in right now if you're familiar with DISC, and if you know your personality type, what that is. Go ahead and chat that in. I can tell you right now that after taking a couple DISC assessments, I'm in the influential, where you see the yellow, right about the top third of that. A little bit of D, quite a bit of I, influential. And we have one person said they're steady, and so on and so forth. Well, by leveraging personality insights, leaders can be more personalized with their approaches and with their maybe rewards, as I was not in this story I shared. And it helps really create a work environment that can maximize everyone's potential. And a simple solution back then, could have been have a variety of prizes that people get to pick from, but understand what motivates them, get to know them, get to know the personality. Let's go to the next slide here. Here's an example, right? And, we have an analyst type, a captain, a motivator, and supporter, and you can see how some of these tips here, how would you give feedback, let's say, to the motivator? Keep it lighthearted, make sure you have compliments, share stories. That's how they like to communicate. On the other hand, if you go down to, say, a C type, how do you collaborate? Make sure your standards are high. Ask them how to best, look at different parts of data, how to uncover mistakes. Analysts tend to be very data-driven. So I think you get the point. Let's pause here a little bit. Sindre, do you have any comments on maybe your own, career and ways you've motivated, maybe including personality, looking at personalities, or maybe not?
Absolutely. So coming from a C type of environment filled with computer scientists, it's you kind of very early on learn how to communicate with them, and the need to be precise in your questioning. And it's kind of funny. It's also a trait of Europeans in some sense. So when I moved to New York in 2019, with my analyst mindset, and then I started to engage, a new CRO who was an American, and absolutely a motivator. That communication was a tiny bit of tension there in the beginning, just because we didn't quite understand each other until we finally cracked the code and we started to gel. So knowing these types of DISC assessments up front obviously helps a lot in crafting the message to the one that you're speaking to. So it's very helpful.
I saw in the chat quite a few DIs came in. It is, I don't know what the percentage or statistics are exactly, but I can tell you in sales, especially sales management, sales leadership, you do get quite a bit up in that upper DI quadrant, and you tend to always communicate like that. So you do run the risk of communicating the style that is effective for you. I heard this said once. Does anybody know what the golden rule is? Type in chat if you know what the golden rule is, real quick. We'll just give it a minute. I'll give you a hint. Do unto others as, see if anybody can. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Thank you. We got to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And when we're looking at personalities, we can take that and tweak it. Do unto others as they would like you to do unto them. Or we could say communicate unto others as they would like you to communicate to them. So it's just flipped it around a little bit. So let's keep that in mind. We'll say this is the, I don't know, we'll just coin it as the DISC golden rule. All right. Okay.
Actually,
yep.
It's a good bridge over to the next segment, because we're talking about end of quarter targets and sales teams. So how does this type of mindset link up with gamification? Richard Bartle is a renowned scientist, and he looked into gamers to figure out how, why did they spend so much time in the games? Why were they so engaged? Why did they keep coming back again and again? Could you kind of like see some commonalities? And he also categorized into 4 categories, which he labeled killers, socialites, explorers, and achievers. So typically, the killers are focused on winning, ranking, direct peer-to-peer competition. Achievers, on the other hand, they're more focused on attaining status, achieving preset goals, and quickly and completely. And then you have explorers who just want to see and find new ways to get to goal by themselves and to discover their own, while the socialites actually made up the majority of all the gamers. and they focused on collaboration, and they wanted to spend so much time in the game because they felt a connectedness to others, and they felt they had a network of friends and contacts. But in sales, the best sales reps tends to be killers. They want to be on top, and that's just the way it is of every sales team I've looked at. They have a Bob, they have a John, who are always on top. So when you start a contest, for instance, they will win, and it from the get-go. So how motivating is that? And on the flip side of that, who tends to be promoted to managers? Well, it's those people on top. So when they get into a manager position, and you start by saying this, Bob, that it's the leadership's, role to motivate the team. Well, if the top performers who are motivated by winning and ranking up and being number one becomes the manager and try to motivate their team, they're going to make the same type of contest and apply the same type of principles because they believe that people are like them. So it's just a very concrete example of how this can go wrong in a sales team.
It's a common problem. We've all heard this, promoting your number one rep and what motivates them. I look at my own career, and I tend to be more in the explorer side, more in the socializing side. And sometimes your top reps are so focused on themselves, it's tough to say, hey, it's not about you now. It's about the 10 people underneath you that you have to adapt to how they want to be communicated with and motivated. So this is a great slide here. Let's go.
So,
yep.
Let's take it one step further and then say, all right, if it's like this in a sales team as well, that you have many different types of personalities, how can you engage every player type? So if you want to motivate across the spectrum of player types and really talk to the individual, you need to do multiple things at the same time. I always like to say that it starts by visualizing the data. And by that, I mean really instilling accountability in the team by showing what everyone is doing, very radically transparent. And yes, these leaderboards are not only motivational for the top performer, they're also motivational for the explorers and achievers, because they then know not only how they rank against their peers and somewhat what is the performance at, they also can see the targets that's been set on them and what's the expectations. So, if you don't measure it, you can't really change any behavior. So you need to measure it and you need to show it. But once you have that in place, that's when you can start to build on it. So one of the things that we already mentioned is like recognition of hard work and how you reward. So should you reward the same way that you want the rewards, or should you actually give choices? So to make sure that they're not only like picking the prices that you think are cool, but they're picking what they want, because that means that they're going to work harder for it. And also don't only reward like the end of quarter bonuses, like don't wait too long. Actually make a big deal out of small things. Oh, you made 100 cold calls today. That's great. That's something actually to celebrate. And you should celebrate the big wins, but also the smaller wins along the way. So make sure you have, a shared Slack channel, Teams channel, a bell or a gong or something to ring when there's something good happening, and celebrate it, because that really talks to so many of the socialites if they can celebrate that together with others. The two last ones is a no-brainer, but competition in sales is just so important. But I would say not only focus on, the outcomes, meaning the sales, focus on the input that you want them to do. So an example of, let's say, a call center rep who's working inside sales, that they need to do a minimum set of good conversations and in order to get any deals. So instead of focusing on the sales, focus on the calls. That's something that they can influence directly. Right. So create competitions there, and I'm going to talk more about that in a sec. But finally, once you start to have all of these elements in place, you need to use your human-to-human manager relationship and reinforce the good behaviors that you're seeing.
Really good
points.
points.
This resonates, Bob?
Yeah, no, there was something you said I wanted to just touch on real quick. You mentioned the celebration, which is really good for the group. One of the things that leaders can do is, if they have, let's say they got a campaign and they're going to award first, second, and third place, They can also award a team award, right? So they could have east, west, north, south, however they divide up the teams. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You're motivating that, that killer rep, as you call it, as well as a team.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you could run these types of competitions in parallel as well. So you could have something that motivates the killers, but you also have a team-based competition that gets socialists going to help each other to get to the next level. But a pro tip that I would love to kind of bring up, and you mentioned this already, Bob, but introducing the element of chance that can really elevate the middle performers in gamification.
Right.
And a non-expensive way to do this is exactly what you just said. Put a lot of prizes in envelopes. It could be $1, it could be $1,000, it could be a gift card for a spa weekend. But you have many $1 gifts.
Love
and
it.
you put them on a wall or something similar. And so every time they book a meeting, they can get an envelope. So even though John or Bob, obviously, they're going to book the most, so they're going to pick the most envelopes and have the biggest chance of winning the grand prize. As long as you contribute, you can win the great prize. That's going to trigger everyone,
I have this is a true story. The first time I ever implemented that, we had something called Wheel of Fortune, and we had one of the reps made this beautiful wheel you spun. And if you were top for the week, you got to spin it at our all hands meeting. So this woman, Heidi Sell was her name. She won. She gets to come up and spin. And we had, I think I counted 15 slots, $5, bankrupt. We had a day off. We had $100. We had $1,000 for the top. She spun it. Where do you think it landed?
Always in the $5,000.
She won $1,000.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I'll never
nice.
forget that. I'm like, oh no.
It becomes something you talk about, and it's great, a lot of fun, and it's definitely worth it from a sales performance perspective. People are motivated, they're going to hit the phones more, they're going to get more done, work done, and that's going to close more deals for you. So
right.
I think that we see it as in our customer base as well. And you don't need to have a gamification platform to do these things, but the beauty of having that is that we can see in the data, like the top performers don't have the biggest increase from adopting a tool like SalesScreen. It's actually the middle and bottom performers who will see the most significant increase, because suddenly, for the first time perhaps, they feel recognized, seen, valued, and motivated to do more. So I guess that brings us to a core question, at least one that I like because it's very tactical and something that people can deploy. Like, what is the most motivational contest or program you've been involved in, and why? Let's share some ideas, and we all have something to leave this webinar with.
Yeah, that's great. Type those into chat. Let's see the chat get real busy here. I will share one while we're giving people some time to chat in. And we did a spinoff of Let's Make a Deal. I actually dressed up as Monty Hall. I had the old 1980s long hair wig and a loud tie and a plaid jacket. And then we had our Salesforce.com administrators sort of dress up like Van and White. We literally rolled this right out, and we did Let's Make a Deal meetings every week based on results, who got to participate on it. It was quite fun.
Yeah, I can share a couple of as well. I mean, one that I like is a very normal one for clients that we work with for decades before they start with us, even, is that they have like these big trips that they sponsor top performers with, or a President's Club. And one client, they did this with the twist. So they had multiple goals that they wanted the team to hit. And for every goal that they hit, this trip that people would go to, which was like the first goal, if you get to this point, we're all going to travel. And the second goal would be like, we're not going to travel on a 1-star hotel. We're actually going to do a 2-star hotel and a 3-star and a 4-star. And we're going to have, luxury spa package on top of it. But they just kept adding crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And it became more and more ridiculous as you went. And all of the goals with the prices were widely communicated, and the people got so motivated to work together that they got the best and most crazy trip they ever experienced. And that created lifelong memories and obviously very good business for the company.
Well, we just had somebody chat in. They went on a cruise for winning a big deal, monthly, annual, if they receive positive online reviews. I love the peer review. We used to have something where you could compliment a peer and you could win like lunch. I thought that was great. You mentioned here their name was mentioned. I'm a big believer too. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Sindra, but if somebody wins something, let's run that way up the flagpole. Let's get the VP, the CEO of the company to reach out and do a little personal congratulations.
Yeah, that goes a long way.
Okay, so there's 4 steps here. We'll move through this quickly. If you have any questions, oh, thanks. I just saw another chat here. They have monthly town halls where we give shout outs. That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. But 4 steps here. So if you're going to implement some personality-based motivation, the first thing you have to do is find out what each personality is. It's interesting. Sometimes you don't know. There's a book written by Matthew Pollard called The Introvert's Edge, and he talks about how introverts can be some of the top sales performers on your team. Who would have known that? So you really do have to dig in. So develop profiles. There's DISC assessments you can take. There's other assessments, Myers-Briggs, things like that. But make sure you start with that baseline so you sort of know wherever everyone is on the personality profile. Then along with that, identify the key traits, the communication preferences, how they like to do, how they like to have meetings. I think, Sindra, you mentioned as a C type, you want someone to be very precise with you, very analytical with you, things like that. Then step 2 is to take that information and make sure you customize your incentives and rewards. I would add to step number 2, ask people, what do you value? What would you, if you were able to achieve a certain goal, what would motivate you? You're going to hear all sorts of different answers from, I'd love just some money because I'd like a down payment for an automobile, or I'd love a weekend away, with my significant other because it's been so many years. So you get to hear, and like the one I heard, jewelry, right? So make sure you ask people. And let's go ahead to the next slide. See step number 3. Make sure when you roll this out, I really like on your slide, Sindra, where you start with that visualize. Make sure when you communicate, it's very transparent, right? And everybody knows what's at stake, what are the expectations, what are the goals. But make sure, though, especially when you're meeting one-on-one or even in a small group, you adapt your communication style based on the personality of the person you're talking with. Number 4, make sure you include everyone. I love to, whenever we used to put a campaign together, we'd start with an idea, then we'd have like a little focus group. We'd bring in several reps from different departments often. Say, hey, we're thinking of doing this. What are your thoughts? You think this will work? Can you add some ideas to make this more exciting, better? Make sure you collaborate among your team. And then, I think, Sindra, you mentioned this before. I think you said that surprise gift, or, it's not always about the number one seller for the month, because oftentimes the number one seller is the same person, right? And others get discouraged. So mix it up and maybe have someone that's not the number one rep, but they're amazing at getting people to renew, or they're really good at customer service. Build those type of things in to your contest as well. 4 steps.
I think like on step 2, just on the rewarding part, that I think sometimes we we forget about intrinsic motivation when the motivation is coming from within. And one thing I like to mention is the 4 currencies of a gamified environment. So obviously you have things, which is the most common way to reward. You give them money for a down payment, or jet skis or whatever. But in reality, you can, through your role in the company, also give them social status. So when you're actually making these comments and recognition and encouraging people to shout out what they've done, and you talk about it on a town hall, you're elevating their social status, and that's a thing that you can reward as well. So it's not only about the things; it's also more intangible currencies like social status, but also like fun. But you can make experiences fun, or give them a fun experience, and that's something that people cherish as well. So it's not only about the money. It's sometimes it's actually about how other people perceive them. So like, social status and recognition.
There was a study by a PhD, Dr. Conde, C-O-N. You might be able to look it up. Richard Conde, C-O-N-D-E, and he did this exact study on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivators, and he found the biggest motivator, even for salespeople, was not necessarily money. They'll tell you, oh, I'd like to make good income, but oftentimes what motivated them was exactly what you said: status, feeling part of something big, feeling like they're highly needed and highly valued to play the part that they play. So
for sure.
Okay.
And I just wanted to try to make it a bit more tactical as well, so you can again leave here and incorporate some of these things that we mentioned. So to kind of reiterate some of the highlights, like really do visualize what you're doing. Like your team can't fix what they can't see. So I've had so many clients that I work with where before working with us, they didn't have anything. They didn't know how they were standing against their colleagues, or what other people were doing to get their deals. Like, figure out your sales process and visualize all the different things, break it down. And once you've done that, catch people when they do something great. Let's focus on the middle performers for a bit. What if an individual there just had his best week ever? It could be her biggest call volume in a week, or it could be they've never sold that much ever before, and it's not the biggest deal of the company. It's not the best week of any rep of the company, but it's theirs. So if you can see that performance and elevate it, they're going to feel so much more motivated than if it just goes past in silence. They feel they've done something tremendous and nobody recognized it. There's nothing worse than that. So really do tag into the fact that money isn't everything. Talk about these, shout out, and give them social status and recognition. It goes such a long way. And then mix it up. Just don't always run the same contest, because yes, John and Bob's gonna love it because they're the top performers. But
Right.
I in that instance, I would be like, it's going to be John who wins this anyway, so why bother? So make it into a team game. Add the element of chance. Give some spice to it. And then ultimately, I would also recommend one gamified element that I definitely do love. Make some rewards, or we call it achievements, that people can hunt for. So if you do this amazing thing, we'll give you a trophy, or we'll give you something to recognize what you've just done, so everyone can see it. But it's clear for them that this almost impossible thing is an achievement that is going to be widely recognized in the company. And just to give an example of that, like the Army is amazing at giving out achievements. Think about it, like the Purple Heart, everyone knows what it stands for. So if you get this amazing achievement, it's going to be handed out by the president, him or herself, and it's going to be something that everyone knows what represents. So it gives them an enormous amount of status in the society. and it becomes a big thing. But in reality, it's just a piece of metal, if you think about it, but it has so much more to it. And all of their stripes and lines and metals, even though it's plastic or it's metal in itself, it has a much bigger significance for them personally, because what the organization have made it into. So that's something that we should adopt in business as well.
Okay, let's see. Yep.
So I'm just going to highlight a couple of stats. So you're talking to a C person here, so I can't avoid it. But Deloitte did a study, and they found that as long as you just have a simple form of recognition program, you're going to experience a 14% increase in employee engagement and productivity, which again leads to better retention, having more fun at work. So having recognition as part of what you do is critical, and it's going to help. But we also see if you incorporate all those 5 elements that I mentioned and you have a true gamified environment, our clients on average see a 43% increase in activities and 35% increase in closed deals. So there are significant wins to be had from a gamified environment. So I guess one thing that I wanted to check with the group here is a couple of questions that we'll see if there's a bit of a motivational gap. But the ones that we're going to start with is just, how would you rate your effectiveness in motivating your team on a scale from 1 to 5? So how good are you at motivating your team? And yeah, as a follow-up question to that one, do you believe that the reps would give you the same score?
You know what I'd like to ask too with this is, and we didn't do this in the beginning, we did look at the titles of people registered, and a large percentage was leadership. But chat in right now, if you're an individual contributor or leader, just throw that in the chat real quick so we can get a sense. And I think if you're taking this, how would you rate the effectiveness in motivating your team? If you're an individual contributor, you may flip it and say, how would you rate the effectiveness of the team being motivated, right, by someone other than you? Leader, CEO, we got leaders coming in real quick here. Just jump on the chat, individual contributor or leader. Please text that in if you would. Leader, CEO, leader, individual contributor, that's 1, 2 ICs, mostly leaders, a few individual contributors. So what do we got there, Emily? Okay. So what? A little always room for improvement, right, Sindre?
Yeah, I would say so. It's interesting though to see that we have a pretty close correlation between our self-awareness here and like how good are we actually in instilling motivation into the team, and do we believe that reps would have selected the same rating? Okay.
Yep.
So we have done a bit of a study here, and I'm going to give you some highlights. So we surveyed over 300 sales managers from multiple different industries, and 60% of them marked low individual motivation as one of their biggest challenges to motivating their team. So they didn't really, they said it's hard to figure out how to motivate the individuals of their team in 60% of the cases. Meanwhile, the same people, 78% pointed to the fact that they feel that they know how to motivate individuals. So that's kind of interesting. So it's a big challenge, but they're very confident that they can motivate their individuals. But we also asked the other side of the table, and 39% agreed with the statement, my managers know how to motivate me. So this is a very interesting, we call it a motivation gap. Because clearly there's a gap there. There's a disconnect. So I guess that kind of wraps it up from our end. I would love to take any questions from the audience as well.
Yeah, we'll give it a few minutes here. Otherwise, you'll get back a little bit of extra time today. But type in your question. You can use the chat for your question, your Q&A. While we're waiting for any last-minute questions here, which I'll keep an eye on, Sindre, tell us briefly about SalesScreen, and if anyone wants more information, where to go or how to reach out.
Thanks. Yeah, so SalesScreen is, as I mentioned, a sales gamification platform, which means that we've really built key expertise in deploying these game-like elements to motivate the individuals of sales teams. So you could think about it as a sales performance management platform, but which is really fun and engaging for the team. So some of the things that we do is like we integrate with your core systems. We capture not only the wins, like the sales, but also their activity. And we beam that up on TV screens in office space and have like YouTube celebrations going off when someone closes a deal. You'll have real-time contests going up there, many different styles. You can have leaderboards, unlock achievements that's configured by the team. So you never miss some of those really great moments that happens. Of course, we have a reward shop where people can go in and suggest rewards, but also pick the ones that they prefer.
Nice.
So you'll really make sure that the individual get the prices they want, and they'll spend a currency you can control called coins that they accumulate through winning contests and unlocking badges, or even challenging pair-to-pairs and battles to be able to get those rewards. So it's a whole environment of different elements, all geared towards motivating the individual to get to that next level of performance and crushing their goal.
I needed that back when I towed in the snowmobile and the jet ski so they could choose what they wanted.
It's funny actually, because like the monetary reward is insane, right? With $30,000 worth of prizes, but many times our clients see rewards like, you know, lunch with the CEO, or sleep in a day, or you know, get in late, like those types of rewards that doesn't necessarily cost the company a ton of money, being more popular, and as such they can price them using the coins equivalent to many thousands of dollars, because its perceived value is much higher from the individual. So you actually end up saving money by deploying a reward shop like that.
I back in the day, maybe not so much today, but years ago, the time off, PTO, winning that was always very valuable.
Yeah. It's time to cherish with your family. So,
all right, best ways to engage. Here's a question that came in. Best ways to engage a remote sales and support team in collaborative gamification. Good question. Do you want to take that one, Sindre?
Sure. So in this case, I would say we have a concept called sales around, which is like very critical. And again, it's just around the visualization. So for instance, if you have a support team, they are probably geared towards solving tickets. So you need to measure tickets solved, perhaps even time that they take to solve those tickets. And that becomes your activities that you want to see and highlight. Then you create, for instance, achievements around this. So you solved your 10th ticket today, or 100 this week, or more than last week. These could be these wins that you elevate and kind of like broadcast, not only on TVs in the office space, because they're working from home, so also broadcast it to their phones so that they have push notification going off when an achievement is unlocked, but also a ping into their Slack feeds or Teams. So you really are being pushed wins on a regular basis, and wins that your colleagues are making. Hence, you're going to care more, because you're curious what other people are doing. So you give them a thumbs up, you add some congratulations, and you create the culture of appreciation towards each other. And you know that your achievements is going to be recognized by everyone in the company as well. And that just makes it much more worth to unlock that achievement or get to that level. So having a shared win feed that you can go in and engage with is so important when we're talking collaborative gamification and engaging remote sales teams. Just they need to feel connectedness with the rest.
Good point. All right, I think that's it. I have one. Wait a second. Let me just check here. One quick question here that came in regarding DISC. It's a long question. Let me just zip through it here and see if I can summarize. Using Crystal for personality predictions, most seem very accurate, 2 or off. My analyst has done this several times and hard to see, very concise, analytical. We have found Crystal. We found it to be extremely reliable. It's not perfect. Sometimes what'll happen when Crystal predicts a personality off a LinkedIn profile is it picks up something that wasn't necessary, a post, for example, or something that was written but wasn't necessarily written by the individual the way they would write it. We've seen that happen occasionally. But reach out to me. Let's share. Here's some free resources. Take a look at this. But reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Bob Perkins. That's simple. And Sindra, best way to reach out to you?
I would say LinkedIn as well, or my first name, Sindra at SalesScreen.com. But I'm trying to be very active on LinkedIn, so probably the best.
Well, good. Thanks, Sindra. Thanks so much for providing some excellent information. Thanks for those supporting us in the background, Emily, and also all of you who attended and took almost an hour out of your day. I hope you gained some ideas, tips. Go get them. Keep the team motivated.
We'll give you the link to sign up and receive the report afterwards, as well as the recording, I hope, Emily. So everyone who has attended the webinar should receive email from us.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much.